Hello and welcome to Sarcastic Spinster, where I analyze the behavior of the minions of the Pussy Het Goddess, aka the women's movement, because lover or hater, we need to understand her. And when I started analyzing the women's movement, I just found it easier to think of that big, huge collective as a single organism, and it helps me make sense of what they're doing and how this is going on. So, this is volume 3 of the collective narcissism of minions. And in this, I am walking through the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder as listed on the website of the Mayo Clinic. So, today's bullet points are kind of fun and interesting. So, as far as symptoms go, they will be preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate, and believe they are superior and can only associate with equally special people. That first bullet point about being preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, that comes into, I think the best example of that is the utopia that the minions and the Pussy Hat Goddess are trying to sell to people. That utopia is actually achievable. And I looked it up, and utopia is defined as an imaginary place or state of existence in which everything is perfect. And it was first used in the book Utopia that was written in the early 1500s. So this idea has been around for that long. Probably before that, that's just when it got captured in a book. It is probably human nature to be able to visualize or to think about what would be perfect. What I've always found to be the biggest problem with utopia is, gee, whose idea perfect are you going with? Because I have a really good feeling that my idea of perfect and your idea of perfect ain't the same thing. And that is where utopia is always ultimately going to fail. In order to create your utopia, you have to force somebody else into their dystopia. So for the minions of the Pussy Hat Goddess, their utopia is where women are immune from their own biology. And men are not men, but are just women with reproductive systems that women can use and benefit from. That to me kind of sounds like the utopia that they're building. They don't appear to like men being men at all. They are trying to bully men out of any behavior that remotely resembles men, and to, force them to acknowledge the superiority of women. And it's getting a little scary, quite honestly. So we're selling our young women a bill of goods in the minion movement. So if young women get into that minion mentality early, and that's a real danger on the college campuses, they are a big recruiting ground for minions. The girls actually believe that this utopia is not only possible, but the only reason we don't have it already is because you're stubbornly resisting And if you would stop being evil, then everything would just be perfect. And we're setting them up for failure with that. We're setting them up to put themselves into dangerous situations because they think they're going to be magically protected. I'm going to get into this a little more because this is a real big spot for me of what is happening to the young women with the minion mentality, what the damage that is potentially doing, and what it's doing to women in general. I mean, it's gonna take us back 60 years, and it frightens me. But okay, like I said, I'm gonna get into that later, and I've kind of gone off on some of that in my previous video, Reclaim Your Power from the Pussycat Goddess. So if you haven't watched that one, please go watch that one too, if you're interested. And it just the utopia is a common theme for minions of all of the different movements. They all seem to be promising a utopia that's just not possible, but that they believe could be achieved if you would just get on board. And the fact that it is not your idea of utopia doesn't matter to them, because they are right and you are wrong. And if your utopia is different from their utopia, then your utopia is not utopia at all. And for some reason, their perspective is so far superior to yours that they just expect you to fall in line. And so, because of that, they are attracted to what they view as equally special people. And the equally special people are the people who think just like they do. And as they preach about diversity, and as they preach about the importance of inclusion, and as they preach about being open-minded, they refuse to listen to anyone who doesn't think like them. And this causes a problem. And it's happening. That's one of the ways in which we're becoming more and more divisive on all of our issues, because people are backing into their corners and forming their groups and their cliques, and when nobody else will listen to you, of course you go to the people who think like you. If you can't actually have a conversation with somebody who doesn't think like you because they're unwilling to have the conversation, who else are you going to talk to? And on that, only the people who are equally see themselves as equally as special. I actually had my woman card revoked. I posted something on Twitter, and I said something to Alyssa Milano. I can't even remember which one this was now. But another woman responded with, "If you really think like that, you should have your woman card revoked." And I think all it was asking her what kind of, oh no, this is what it was. I asked when she was going to, what I asked Alyssa Milano was when she was going to use her platform to start teaching victims of sexual assault how to collect and preserve evidence. And for saying that, I had my woman card revoked, because if I would just get out of the way and let them achieve utopia, women would not get raped. And that was basically what the other woman said to me. Well, it said, back to the old thing, and I've mentioned this one before in previous videos. Well, if we would just teach our boys to not rape, girls wouldn't have to get evidence. How sad is that? That is the moral high ground that she's taking. That if you could just control the behavior of everyone, women would be safe. So why don't you just do that instead of teaching women how to deal with the bad stuff when it actually does happen? Had my woman card revoked. I didn't know where it was anyway, so not really all that big of a deal. So, yeah, I'm really broken up about it, as I'm sure you can tell. So going on to the really fun one today. The really fun one today is how they react to criticism. And this was very serendipitous considering what's actually going on today. They react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. There was a whole hell of a lot of that going on today. There was a tweet from Kathy Griffith that was just F you, and I mean hers wasn't just an F, it was the whole word. And it was an F you to just a list of senators, each one individually. And that was the sum total of her tweet. It was oh so witty. There were the protests at the Hart Senate building where they had to shut the building down because so many women showed up there to scream and complain because they weren't getting their way. God. Do we have to act like toddlers every time we don't get our way? I mean, really? 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 Do we have to go out there and look like freaking hysterical women because we didn't get our way? Do we really think that's advancing the cause to go out there and look hysterical? And it really is because we didn't get our way. And then, the minions are coming out with, well, they didn't talk to any corroborating witnesses. The FBI refused to interview any corroborating witnesses. That's because there were no corroborating witnesses, you freaking dumbasses. If there had been corroborating witnesses, we wouldn't have been going through this circus. So, because the FBI didn't hop in the time machine that they obviously have to go back to the party whose location they don't know on the date that they don't have in the year that Ford couldn't tell them and collect evidence, it's now all bullshit. And we're going to go pitch a big old hissy fit like the bunch of girls we are and shut down the Senate building. And that's going to win people over to our side. Really? Really? So, yesterday, I had posted something else on Alyssa Milano's Twitter feed because I have got to tell you, I am really seriously enjoying trolling Alyssa Milano. having a great time. I don't think she knows any of this is going on. She's got so many followers and gets so many notifications that I'm sure she doesn't read any of this, but it's fun to get the reactions of her other followers. It's been quite entertaining. So I had posted, it was, and it was something similar about utilizing her platform to teach women how to protect themselves. And I mean, one girl and she's a millennial. That's how she bills herself. And she just laid into me and let me have it. And I have to say, I really admire her passion. She did. It was tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet after tweet, just firing at me. She was outraged by this whole idea. And she said some things that I found really, really sad, but I'll get to that. But after she's gone on her rant, this guy joins into the discussion and he says, so if I've got this straight, the new millennial platform, socialism, how did he put it? Oh, socialism, guilty until proven innocent, men suck, white men suck more. Do I have it all? And her reply to him was, I think you got it, with a gif of a woman doing this. Like, duh. So she actually openly admitted that was her platform. That you are guilty until proven innocent, and that men suck and white men suck more. We'll just leave the socialism out of it. That's a different discussion. That's a different set of minions. And she didn't see a problem with that. She just didn't see a problem with it. And then she said something that really broke my heart. And it was that it shouldn't be the woman's responsibility to provide evidence anyway. The cops are supposed to go out and investigate and get the evidence. What are we teaching our women? That is just frightening. In what? I mean, my gosh, has she never watched a cop show? The victim is always the best source of evidence. Always. Physical evidence, anyway. And the crime scene. And we didn't have a crime scene. And so the whole idea that women shouldn't have to worry about preserving and collecting evidence because the cops should just believe it's true and go out and find the evidence that the woman has destroyed by taking a bath and washing her clothes. And then that we need to, the whole idea that we need to teach our women how to get and collect evidence, and no, I need to lose my woman card for even suggesting such a thing. And I feel bad for this girl because she really thinks she's doing the right thing. And she's got some real reasons for thinking the way that she thinks, but she doesn't have that core base of understanding why it is innocent until proven guilty and not guilty until proven innocent. She doesn't have that that core understanding of individualism, and that's why it's so easy for the pendulum to get swung so far. Oh, that was my initial tweet. See, now I remember what it was that this girl just with her passion reacted so much to. Alyssa Milano had been on TV and had was having a conversation with somebody, because apparently she's a big authority on all of this. And she talked about swinging the pendulum. And since I've been talking about swinging the pendulum on here, I was all prepared for a response to that one. And so what I said to her was that when we swing the pendulum to the point where we are willing to trample all over the rights of men, the pendulum has swung too far. And when a pendulum is pushed too far, it usually swings back with a vengeance. And this is what that girl just took such exception to and got so passionate about. And she really thought she was moving the pendulum to where the pendulum needed to be moved, because she had no basis for understanding where balance lay. And that's really sad. If we don't all have an understanding of where balance lay, we're going to push it too hard. We're going to push too far. Because we're thinking about our rights and we're not thinking about the same rights in everybody else. She did not care that men had their rights trampled on. She actually openly said in another tweet that because she thought the rate of false accusation was so low that the percentage of men who would have their lives ruined by false accusations was justifiable to protect the women who it actually happened to and didn't have evidence. I find that sad. I find that very, very sad. So the reacting with rage and contempt. There has been a lot of rage and contempt. A lot of it flying around. There was somebody on Twitter. She's a woman writer who is not a minion. And somebody told her she should kill herself on Twitter. And guess what? Twitter hasn't blocked him. And Twitter hasn't made him remove the tweet. But Twitter's not at all biased. There's not any problems in their algorithms. None at all. Even though the person actually got reported by other Twitter users. So, just as a recap, on the symptoms, they're delusions of utopia, where they are preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate, or establishing world peace in one global utopia where everybody does exactly what they want them to do. And then they believe they are superior and can only associate with equally special people. That isolationism into an echo chamber, and the you're a piece of shit for not thinking the exact same way that I do, and you're less than human and beneath my notice, so get away from me. And then in how they react to criticism, they react with rage or contempt and try to belittle the other person to make themselves appear superior. And we see a sad amount of that. And I really think it is in the collective minion. I don't necessarily think that each of these minions are narcissists individually in their own life and in their own way. I think it is part of the minion collective that the minion collective is narcissistic because the goddess herself is narcissistic. And so when they are doing what the goddess tells them to do, thinking what the goddess tells them to think, believing what the goddess tells them to believe, it's narcissistic. Regardless as who they are as an individual, unrelated to this specific movement. So this has been Volume 3 of The Collective Narcissism of Minions. Please like, share, and comment below if you enjoyed it. #PussyHatGoddess. Something to think about.